so value proposition. So this is it's kind of like Mad Libs, but with the actual things that you're doing in life. So for your target audience, who need, and then here's where you put your compelling reason, in the case of a blog, to read, or compelling reason to watch, or whatever it might be. The name of the blog is, and then the type of blog. And here's where you find yourself looking at different categories and, hating to shoebox or pigeonhole yourself, but in some ways it's useful because it helps you. And then that provides, and then a key benefit. Unlike, and you choose a main competitor here, sometimes it's not obvious what your main competitor is, and the name of your blog again, key differentiation. So here's an example. Big Web is a company that I run, a service that I provide through a company. So for small business owners and independent professionals who need clear ideas for building businesses online, Big Web's blog is a how-to business blog. So this is, I'm rolling these questions out as though this was super obvious, but it's useful to spend some time kind of thinking through, who am I? What kind of a site is it that I'm creating? What is it that I read, or that my potential target audience would want to read? And then turning that into something. So, and then finally, so it's a business blog that provides step-by-step advice that even tech-averse people can follow. The second sentence is actually almost the more important one. Unlike key competitor, remember, so in the case of this, I might say the key competitor is somebody like Mashable, which is a site that also covers technology and gives step-by-step advice. But what's unique and different about what we would do, we might say that we don't overload or bog it down with techie details. Because the target audience that I'm envisioning for my business here, small business owners and independent professionals, they actually, as it turns out, although they want to save money, and they often say they want to do things on their own, it turns out they don't really want to do them. They just want it to be done, but very inexpensively. And so this would be a way to say there are things that you can do on your own to sort of save money, but without getting into the techie details. And once it gets into the details, then we would provide other services, and that's where the company comes in. So this is just an example. Is anybody here trying to think of a way to sort of explain their business, and you want to use yourself as that? We can go back to the previous slide, and you can fill in the Mad Libs. Anybody want to be a volunteer? Be a guinea pig? No guinea pigs. Okay, go.
We do a Mac-centric website.
Mac-centric website.
And our target audience would be for new Macintosh users who need basic fundamentals on how the Mac works. The name of the blog is Mac's Life is a tech-centric blog that provides information for people who are new to Macintoshes.
Well, I'm just going to jump in. So for those new Mac users who need to figure out how to use what they just bought, it's actually what I would call for that thought. That's what they're compelling. They've spent some money and they want to get a return on their investment. Okay. Because what you put here, the sort of fundamentals, I think is actually your key benefit. Do you know?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So that's the part that you're providing. And when you think about that, you'd actually never say this to your customer or your reader, that this is who they are or whatever. But it changes how you think about what it is, what categories do we want to cover in our columns in our blog, or how do we tag things, and you start focusing on the benefit you're giving them is you're giving them the fundamentals. Okay. And what they really need is like they want to know that they didn't waste their money. I think. I don't know. Does anybody else have a bit different way of looking at that? All right, so go on.
Okay.
Key competitor. Who's your key competitor for?
I'd imagine that the key competitor would be something like the unofficial Apple Web blog.
Okay. It could also be like some guy down the street.
Sure.
Or the Genius Bar.
Yeah. Because it would be an on-demand type thing, so you'd have that ability. And the key differentiation is it's more targeted to specific use of applications other than the other web blogs that just give you a shotgun approach to what's out there.
One thing I might like to get that differentiator more differentiated you might want to take a look at that audience. You said the new users of Mac stuff, and really decide if you wanted to really segment it. Say, are they people who are just not tech savvy in the first place, or are they? So they're probably almost not. They're not cutting edge type people, or they would already know this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that tells you a little bit about what they. I'm sorry.
The thing was initially that would have been our out of the gate, and as the show has progressed, we've gotten more and more techie, because it's like, well, if you want to learn the basics, go back to episode 1. But we're moving, because you can only do so many episodes on this is how you use GarageBand or something.
Okay,
so it's ended up morphing into not just the new users, but the people that have been using it for a while, and here's this new application, like last week we did Plex. This is a new application that just hit the market, and this is what we can do with it. And so we're trying to drive, we're trying to get both worlds in there.
I think that it almost sounds like you're more interested in that second audience that you talked about. You ought to just forget about trying to do the newbies at all. Forget about even calling it fundamentals. Call it like advanced. I don't know, my suggestion to you, because it's simpler to talk to just one audience rather than 12 or even 2.
Yeah.
And I think that you would have more, you seem like you would have more fun. It's always going to be a new thing if you're talking about not fundamentals, but really nitty-gritty cool shit.
But you can also, if you've already got the
you can still give people that. Are you new?
You can segment a separate launch page for each different target like that. You're making new content for one, but you've already got the stuff that'll help those people, and then they'll become the experts to go to your new stuff.
Yeah.
You've already done the work for the original people. Why let that group go?
Or just keep bringing in the new people so they'll read your new content.
Right.
So you still want to market the old stuff.
Which is what
there's a when I'm trying to.
Well, that was my thing, was moving the client base forward, because they start out not being newbies,
right.
And then you've already kind
I'm
of
trying to resize this to put this
to the point where this is the
But you want to market to the newbies and your old stuff, and maybe make some newer beginning ones every now and then, so it's more, it's not all years old, but to get the new customer, to get the newbies.
Similar, we had these people had already built their site by the time we. How do you spell library? Thank you. So they do a similar thing, but in a different industry. Lean manufacturing is the kind of it's a way of thinking about processes in manufacturing where you're doing constant improvement. Basically, how Toyota makes cars, and now everybody else is learning to make cars. But anyway, the Lean Library is a group of people who wanted to. There's a lot of books out about this, but how do you decide which are the right books to read, which are the right things to do? So in some ways, it's parallel. There's people coming in who are new. And so when we redesigned this homepage, Noodling, we put this button here, and they have some quick start guides that help people find the right books within this content, which is parallel to your old episodes. But mostly, it's the big focus of this is for people who are coming in and are trying to find, they're not that new to this, but they're looking for reviews or other things, browsing by author, browsing by year. So maybe that's it, that you want to focus just a little bit of time on helping people navigate through this great library of content that you've created, tags and stuff like that. I'm sure you augmented it with, but get those, sort of use your navigation to segment out your other audience. It sounds like you're having so much fun doing the. Well, but you're the kind of person who, just like you do sessions here to teach people, so you do care about the people who are new and wanting to help them get started. So I can see both those impulses, but they do kind of conflict.
Yeah. I want to help the new people, but I want the new people to get geeky quick.
Right. So that's where your quick start guides work. So the comic thing, I don't know whether the audience, whether the value proposition thing is at all helpful to that, but do you guys want to try, filling in the Mad Libs? I know you have another discussion going on in the meantime. But
hand in the light.
Okay, so who's the target audience? Do we want to just pick one of the comics, or do we want to talk about all 3 of them?
Just one.
Just one. Okay, so who's the audience? Talking to the mic.
I guess it would be for the book Explorers of the Unknown. The target audience would be adults, maybe 18 to maybe 45.
And do they tend to be from a particular? Do they tend to be the kind of people who also read something similar? I mean, is there how can we narrow that age group? That's a lot of people.
I'll explain it. Yeah,
Yeah, but I would say that's appropriate for comics.
But there's sci-fi fans within that age range.
Sci-fi, kind of like, if you remember like those old Johnny Quest cartoons, Hanna-Barbera.
Sci-fi, adventure,
or
supernatural fans.
Okay.
Yeah, like people that read Hellboy would like it. People that read Fantastic Four would like it.
Cthulhu.
Yeah, Cthulhu.
Yeah, Lovecraft. I'm a huge Lovecraft.
That's about it, I suppose.
Okay, so let's take that. That was a lot of words, but I'm counting on you guys to remember what you said.
Okay.
And so what's the compelling thing that they want? They want new stories. They want new stories along certain.
New great stories, great art. Trying to think of what else. Interesting twists.
Okay.
We're not like the rest of the webcomics where we have like a story that keeps continuing on and on. We actually do have breaks.
Okay, so that's coming down here. So one of your key differentiators is going to be that. It's okay to fill these, so just like Mad Libs, you can fill them out in any order. It's perfectly okay. You can just grab. So your differentiator is that you have breaks that, say it again.
Yeah, like we tell it as one story. Like we tell one story. Like kind of think of like episodes. And they run for like so many weeks, like I guess probably like 15 to 20 weeks. It's not like set in stone, but that's usually my page count. It's like 15 pages per story.
Mini-series or graphic novels instead of
So
instead of
almost
Batman
like
or Superman.
It's not like a graphic novel. I guess it's actually more like I guess kind of like for Batman's where it has like one story, like one story is like one comic book.
Like a series of story arcs.
Yeah,
A series of
story arcs. Okay, I like that, and that's a thing that's an idea that people can understand. They'll have a series of story arcs as a key differentiator. Who would be the kind of people who don't do that? Unlike everybody else who's doing graphic webcomics, or who do you consider, or is your competition like all entertainment, or is it YouTube, or who do you consider as the other things that the same audience might do?
Gosh, I really don't know my competitors, to be honest. I mean, I guess.
But are you really competing against other comics or all entertainment?
Yeah,
I mean, you're competing against them going to their Xbox just as much as you are them reading another
when it comes to that, yeah.
But as far as, though, getting back to our original question was how do you get the word out, it might be interesting to go out and find where some of this related audience, what other stuff that they're doing, and either advertise or somehow get into those same communities and start to make some bonds with people that way. Because like you're saying, is it really competing? Yes, we all have limited attention span. There's only so much time you've got to go. So you can consider it kind of competition, but it also can be co-opetition where you're all cooperation, where you're all kind of working together to just make people really happy and make them never ever need to go play a video game again because they're doing this instead. So, but anyway, so that might be interesting to do some exploring around and see. Ask people who read your site what else do they read, and where do they find it, and how do they find it.
Okay.
Good, I got a nod there. I feel really
good.
that was one big check mark.
That's something right there.
Okay.
How does that work if the roles reverse, though, where you have a general topic that can be that can go over a very large, diverse amount of viewers? Like, example, my comic deals with tech. It deals with making fun of technology. So things that are very specific in the industry right now, I'll basically dumb it down to a level that, everybody knows what the iPhone is, and everybody hears all the bad stuff that happens with the iPhone. So instead of going back and saying, okay, well, Tech News Today talked about this, or they talked about this specifically, I'll dumb it down to a level and just make fun of it on a more simpler level.
I'm questioning your choice of dumbing it down. I would rather you were like sort of, how Monty Python never just assumed that you would figure out the reference, or.
Well, the reason I'm dumbing it down is those people that already watch those kind of podcasts or are already in tune with that specific thing, they'll already know what's going on.
I know, so sometimes I think there's a value in being an elite, and being separate and segmenting out,
But it also depends on the detail of it, because you You can have the tech level, the geek level. You can have the Dilbert level.
Yeah.
And then
There are. You're right. Yeah. Maybe there's an amount of dumbing it down. Maybe that's what you're doing. Is you're just trying to broaden it a little bit, but.
Yeah, I'm basically just taking a very specific topic and saying, well, let's think of it at this angle. On a more consumer-based type. I mean, the people going into the Apple store that, like example, my last comic, I made fun of the fact that people were taking the Nano and using it as a wristwatch. Well, the techies would think that's pretty cool. But for the main consumer, it's kind of like, well, why would you want to do that? So, I mean, that's what I'm kind of trying to...
Yeah, it looks like an old calculator.
Yeah. So,
I'm going to just show you, I don't know if we want to play this whole video, it's not that long, it's only 5 minutes. David Mitchell is a British writer and comedian and all these things. But he does these soapbox videos, so a little podcast. And they did something just on a similar topic to this, and he's probably going to make the point better than I ever could, which is why I thought maybe this would work.
Look at recording your audio.
Can you do that while I find the video that I want?
Bulldog products and loads of David Mitchell goodies. Visit meetthebulldog.com/soapbox. Terms and conditions apply.
Something I come up against a lot in my line of work is a reluctance to include references to things that not everyone will get. And a friend of mine who works in children's TV says it's even more of a problem there. The producers are terrified of mentioning anything that not all 12-year-olds have already heard of. But most 12-year-olds haven't heard of much, and they're going to hear of a lot less if TV refuses to tell them stuff. The whole experience of being a child is about hearing words, ideas, phrases and references you don't understand, and either working them out from context, asking someone, or looking them up. But the current orthodoxy apparently believes that children capriciously turn off as soon as you mention anything they're unfamiliar with. I first came across Proust via Monty Python and Wagner via Bugs Bunny, and though that means I'm now always slightly surprised when the singer portraying Brunhilde doesn't break off to gnaw on a carrot, it certainly didn't stop me enjoying the cartoon at the time. Although to be fair, neither has inspired me to find out much more about either. That's Proust and Wagner, not Bunny and Python, of which I have box sets. But the point is, audiences don't mind being introduced to new references, and they certainly don't blame whoever has made the reference, but tend to blame themselves. Whatever broadcasters think, ignorance is something a lot of us are still ashamed of. I can't think of a much more constructive use for shame than that. And aside from the shame, people like it. Our human response to mystery is to be intrigued, not repulsed. That's why whodunits work, and why the oldest trick in storytelling is to introduce a closed container and withhold the knowledge of its contents. From Pandora to Lost. And incidentally, of those two references, it's only the first producers and editors would ever be nervous about including. We're all assumed to be au fait with pop cultural references, and to know that Lost has a hatch, just as it used to be assumed we all knew Theseus had a Minotaur. Well, that was a pet, but you know what I mean. And if you don't, you know where to look it up. In any case, children have never been better equipped to supply the deficiency. Today's 12-year-olds have always had the internet. They've grown up with Google, Wikipedia and smartphones as a fact of life. They take it for granted that anything they don't know can be instantly looked up. These are not people who are afraid of knowledge they don't have. Nor do I buy the argument that they'll be turned off by being reminded they don't know everything yet. All teenagers secretly know they're ignorant, and they know that's a problem. They might reject whatever their parents and teachers are trying to induct them into, but they still know they need to be inducted into something. Children's shows should have the confidence to use the "maybe you're not old enough for this yet" reverse psychology, which all parents of adolescents know is the most effective spur. The marketing of so much children's or teen television, BBC3 for example, is the opposite of this. Hey kids! Desperation to provide the youth audience with what a room of 35-year-olds thinks it might like, calculated to alienate even the uncoolest of children. They might as well have hired Cliff Richard. To deny us, for fear of offending us, the chance to be confronted with our own ignorance is to deny the power of human curiosity, a force that means we as a species are prepared to build a vast super collider below the French-Swiss border just to see what happens when we switch it on. and also a force that means that if a 12-year-old first hears about Super Collider on Saturday morning TV and doesn't know what it is, he or she is more likely to Google it than switch off in disgust.
So that was
David Mitchell's Soapbox, brought to you by Bulldog. Not.
So what do you? I mean, so does that make up anything that's relevant?
I mean, it kind of puts something, like right now, I ran into that problem before where even at work, they would read my comic and some people would be like, I don't really get it. So what I started doing was just adding links and a quick comment to what I was trying to get across, like a sentence. I'm like, all right, this is what I was thinking. But I guess the question I would ask you then on the business side of it is, if my target audience can be tailored to comedy and technology, who do you go after, or do you not go after any?
I don't know. I think a lot of people who are technical, and maybe I'm just projecting for myself, but people who know something about technology also, everyone thinks they've got the best sense of humor, right?
Yeah,
and so I'm pretty sure that if you find the people out there that understand what you're saying, there's enough of them that will think that you're funny. I'm sure it's true.
If I could, my humble opinion out there, I think he's right about 12-year-olds, but I think you've gone after a certain market, and you have the humor. You don't have to ask her who to go after. You already know what you want to do, and you already know what's in here. If you've reached that audience and you're getting feedback from them, who the hell cares how you do it? If you're having fun with it and it's the way you wanted to do it.
Well,
That's true. The first thing to do is to be awesome.
On that same kind of point that I've learned in software development is that an application, if you've ever worked in any kind of large business where you have to use some kind of software they built in for it, if the programmer isn't scratching an itch, the software's going to suck. It has to be something they're writing for themselves that they want, that they believe in, or else it's not going to be good to use. And I think it's the same kind of thing. You know what you're targeting, and I think that's the kind of thing where you know what you're looking for.
And you're speaking to the wrong crowd, because everybody here gets the technology, at least on some level. Most people are here. So it's difficult to think of people who don't.
But we
his dumbing down might be the thing that those people want.
But that's not necessarily true, because one of the best shows on TV right now is Big Bang Theory, and it's so good
Yeah, but I'm
because
saying for his market and for what he's doing. I'm not saying you dumb everything down, but if it's working for him,
yeah, I mean, if it's working, if it ain't busting, don't fix it.
Well, but you also you're trying to expand the market and get more people. The other question is, do you want to pass the grandma test? I mean, or at my age, I'm 37. There's does it pass my father's test or does it pass my grandmother's test? Or my niece's test. My nieces are going to get it no matter what. But my dad was using computers, but insists that I still have to fix anything he has.
My mother thinks she should only be on Facebook to play Farmville.
Well, my grandmother.
My mother said, "Oh my God, you're getting a Facebook account. You better only play Farmville." Why would you do that?
My grandmother said this: if everybody else can .com, we'll .com too. So
there's a fine line too between dumbing down and broadening appeal. I think what he's talking about is more broadening appeal.
Speak in more layman terms for people who may not be familiar.
Which I think to some of us could actually be funny as well. There's humor in the fact
Right,
that
it depends on where you want your niche, how big you want your niche to be.
I always think that some of the best books are, authors often say, I wrote the book that I wanted to read. Or a composer will say, I'm writing music for me and my friends. So, and it seems like you're already on that way. And give it some time. Don't dumb it down until you have to. We never finished your value proposition, though. So did you want to go back to that, or do we want to continue on this? This discussion is kind of just discussion. Okay. Who else? Does anybody else want to talk about this, or do you want to do something else?
I might actually try it.
Okay. All right. She gets the mic.
Oh, God. Can't I just talk loud enough?
It's for the people who are possibly recording this.
Okay. And I wouldn't have said hell. Anyway.
Talk into the mic.
Okay, here we go.
Fill in any one of these. Don't do them in order. It's fine.
Okay. I'm at a loss.
You know
I'm
the
working
name of
this.
your
I'm working.
site.
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, that confused me. You want blog or site? Because it's we've got promotion in motion.
Promotion and motion, and then the blog is a subset of that.
Yeah.
And
it is the Daily Nonprofit.
The Daily Nonprofit, okay.
So the target audience is nonprofit organizations.
All of them?
Yes. Except for the ones that already know how to use social media.
Okay,
so who need assistance with getting their message out through the means of social media.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay, I see. So you've got the first two. Great. Mm-hmm. And it's a how-to blog?
Right now, this is a startup. So what we're doing a little bit of info, and then we'll do a little bit of highlights on individual nonprofits, and kind of try to tie all that in, as well as maybe blogging a little bit about why you need social media, even though you think you don't.
Okay. Now, the people who need it, it's probably going to be easier to get to the people who know that they need it. It's always easier to sell the solution.
The sad thing is you can't use social media to get to the nonprofits that don't know how to use it. So you have to use traditional means of marketing.
Right.
And things like cold calls and things that people forget about. Old school business. So we actually have to use standard means of communication and marketing to bring them forward into what we all do.
Absolutely. Right.
Okay.
So who's your main competitor?
I have no idea. The other people who are trying to do that.
Okay. There are a lot of blogs targeted at nonprofits right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
it seems to have been the thing. We all came up with the idea at the same time, which I think happens in the universe.
Well, what could be kind of awesome is that your site could be the one, because there are so many, at this point there's a lot of noise as well as signal in those other sites. So your thing could be sorting the wheat from the chaff and finding the really good resources. So being like the curator of really great content.
I don't know. We have to figure out why that's what we're working on right now, is what we have to offer to compete with, other than we have some journalistic tendencies and we'll cover events and promos ourselves, like news.
Well, that could be
media.
A key differentiator.
That's the hope. Is that we take going out to your event, flip camming it, posting it through the blog, Flickr, YouTube, whatever, getting it out into all mass markets, and then doing write-ups on that as well to try to get the word out and connect the dots between the advocates, the donors, and the nonprofits.
So maybe you're doing more of the social media I'm sorry, the gentleman behind us has a really great idea.
Are you trying to get the nonprofits to do their own blogging? Or are you trying to be the intermediary doing the blogging for them?
More than likely, we will do it for them, because the things that we find is that they do not have the resources. They're limited budgets to begin with and limited staff doing more work than anybody can humanly possibly do. So we're trying to make it, an inexpensive system. We have a setup where you buy the package. If you need everything, we will do everything. If you need a limited amount of things and only want us to touch on a few things, then that's how we'll do it. If you want us to do it for you for a while, then you have all of your admin specs and you can get in and do it yourself. Then we can eventually wean you to the point where you want to do it yourself. So it depends on whether they have the resources or don't have the resources to do it themselves. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
I was going to say too, though, to not assume that they wouldn't come to you. They're on the internet. They come to you through your internet. You not necessarily have to go just.
No, we don't want to cut them out of those means.
You don't have to just use.
We think site traffic.
Standard post media to get to them. That helps, but you can use your media.
We think we'll get website traffic. We don't think we will get them following us on Twitter and Facebook and things like that. Because if they were already doing that, they wouldn't need us.
Are you targeting nationwide, worldwide?
We're going to start local. Would be
You're starting local.
The greater Pittsburgh region. If it goes bigger than that, great. But we are looking to help people that we can see and touch every day. If we get something good that works for people and it goes bigger, hey, we'll do it. I like to travel.
You have a question?
Do you have a business card?
I walked out of the house without having done that, but I will give you.
I have mine.
I
work for a nonprofit, the Homeless Association in the Hill District, and we need so much help on this.
Okay.
I mean, I came here and you guys are so techy, I don't even know what y'all are talking about.
That's great.
Webcomics and all that. I never even thought of anything like that. So I mean, I'm out of my realm here, but what you're talking about is what.
And you were the exact people to hook up with. The lady and I that are going to do this together, her name is Vivian Lee Croft. She actually would have been helping out on the session that's with the Secret Agent L that's, I think, in this room next, but she's away. She and I are doing this together, and really the biggest reason is because we are those helper people. We just want to help people. Yeah. We like people. If she and I could get paid for the things we're doing right now for free, we wouldn't need a job. And we just, we just really like connecting with people. And, it's not like hire us because we're nice, but you know what? We're nice and we'll help you. So that's kind of our pitch. So maybe unlike the main competitor, we're local, we're nice, and we're involved to begin with. That might be your
main competitor is people not doing anything out there.
Yeah, that's true.
So who else has a thing that they want to do?
Not that it ended up being not just a
yours was good.
By the way, Tootie, we're like, come on.
There's mine. Well, let's look at your webcomic thing. We don't have any more things to do.
I have a question on when, example for the idea I had with a comic is I wanted an end game to be going to a video for it. In the sense of business, when would be a good time to do that? Or is it just whenever you feel, I guess taking the next step in social media in terms of business? Is there any way to judge?
So the comic is when do you do another medium? I guess when you can. I don't know. Maybe that's someone else's better answer, but I would just
doing it.
Yeah, if that's what really interests you, then do it that way.
Yeah, it's the whole thing of social media is you just start kind of it's really more about, I think, time and building it and being there and being consistent and people talk a lot about brand, and brand is just a promise. So whatever your website is essentially a promise, and that you're going to keep saying that you have that brand, and then there you are.
Video also spreads faster, is more, viral than other things. It's just really easy to pass along.
Not only that, social media isn't, you're absolutely right, but I think it's more about time and passion. Whatever it is, if you have enough hours in the day to do your comic in addition to video, great. But don't let one suffer because of the other.
I think that's the big thing that I was coming across.
It's time.
Because especially coming from my background, I know what goes into putting a cartoon together. It's not possible to stay.
Well, that's kind of probably your answer right there, unless you had funding or something.
Yeah.
This may not be related to this, but I work for a small software company, and we have a blog on our website, and we've asked 4 or 5 different people to blog once a week. So for them, it would turn out to be maybe once a month.
Yeah.
But at least there would be update. I'm having a really hard time encouraging people to get this done.
So the question is, you've invited people to be guest bloggers, and then how do you hold their feet to the fire to get them to actually do what they promised to do?
As the marketing person, I can't write techie about ASP.net. I just can't do that. But
having been an editor of a print thing before, I know of a volunteer print publication for a user group, I know that that's almost impossible to do, other than nagging them all the time. Does anybody else have any better ideas than I?
I worked in traditional media for a while, and the way you do it in there is you basically build up. I'm starting a new software company. We don't even have a logo yet, so we don't have a website. But I've already blogged 8 articles that are going to be up there once it launches. And so you call putting them in the can. And I know I'm going to be too busy to blog once we launch and ship the software product, but I've already got 3 months worth of blog posts already in the can.
Yeah, so you might have to just kind of like an airline oversubscribe and know that people won't show up.
Yeah, overbook. Get as many as you can, more than, don't worry that you're going to get too much you can't publish.
Yeah, that'll never happen. Okay, so we were talking about this, so I figured we may as well use this as a chance. So one way to get your word out about you is to come to events and ask them to put your thing on the screen. Here you go. Now we know the answer to that. Explorers of the Unknown. Google it. They look like this.
Sometimes I trade it up and do color, but most of the time it's black and white.
And And you're doing the email to a friend. That's very nice.
Well, we use we use a portal site called Drunk Duck where you can sign up free and put them on there.
Have you looked at using like Comixology?
We have, but we're not working on because we have Sean has a workshop or indie imprints workshop 13, so we're focusing now on the main site workshop 13.net.
Because I just got my iPad and reading comics on the iPad with those apps is just amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm going to say actually tomorrow when I talk is who do you like who does comics, and who do you think handles it the best, and what can you do to kind of emulate what they're doing?
I know he mentioned that he really likes Penny Arcade guys.
Well, Penny Arcade is their own entity. They're bigger
But
than
they were
just
small. They were small.
They were. But
I mean, they were at the start of it because I went to PAX and big Penny Arcade fan.
Yes.
But like they started small too, you know.
I kind of like. Well, I used to like Boston Square, how he had it set up, and then he did a totally different site. Now it just looks crap.
So
So I changed this over to the next screen. We can go back to the other one though.
It's Drunk Duck. What was it?
Drunk Duck.
Drunk Duck. So is that like a ring essentially? Like a ring of comics?
It's like a webcomic community.
Okay.
You can sign up for your own account and post your own comics.
So it's more like WordPress.com, but for webcomics?
Essentially.
So do you guys ever do like guest comics?
If anyone ever wanted to come to me and say, hey, I want to do a guest comic.
But do you reach out too? Because that's part of it, is getting a trade agreement going is another good way to reach out to other audiences. And
somebody else who has a need for
I guess I was always
especially
afraid to ask because I don't make that much money.
But that's the thing. That's the beautiful thing about trade agreements. And again, I'm talking more about this tomorrow. But I worked at a nonprofit for a couple months over the summer, and it was a big nonprofit. It was in LA. They were in a huge conference, but they were a nonprofit, so they essentially had no money. And even they were reaching out and saying, "Hey, I will trade you ad space on your page for ad space on my page." And it works. And that's one of the things, is I'm sure there's lots of other comics out there at your exact same level that you can say, hey, I'll scratch your back, scratch my back sort of thing. And then you're appealing to their audience and you're getting more people, so it goes both ways. So there's ways that you can do it with little to no money by just kind of doing your research, seeing who's out there and saying, hey, let's be friends. Like, let's work together actually to get more views.
Yeah,
so a different kind of
old link share.
Or the old web rings.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, if they were on a ring.
So a different kind of comic, the stand-up comics. Mark Maron is a stand-up comic, started out in the late 80s and was very big in the 90s and still is. He was on Air America for a while, doing a radio, an on-air program, and that eventually morphed into this podcast. It's been going on for about 2 years now. He interviews other comics, and they talk about the industry and the trade and so forth. And it seems to me that there's a certain chunk of your audience. He's identified the idea of this sort of comics nerd, in the sense of stand-up comedy nerd. And there's, in the same way, I'm sure there are graphic comics nerds and web comics nerds. And so I don't know whether there's some sort of a forum or community, but this would be the way of kind of finding your peers and your friends. And like she's saying, either there's an ability. You can't always, you don't always have the time to draw about these things, but you can talk about yourselves in a blog or just a very quick podcast, just kind of sharing industry ideas. And I don't know, we're just trying to find ways to help you, join the community, make up something that's larger than you, that is like a mission or something like that.
But I think that fear of reaching out is, you shouldn't be, because
reaching out is not really a problem with me. It's more like asking someone to do artwork for me.
That's where you, in that case, where something I've done with my website way back in the day was you ask them if they can double post. So it's actually easier for them and say, hey, you know what? Would you be willing to repost something on my site as well? And then kind of make it like it's an easier entry level into that conversation, and then establishing a relationship and then managing the relationship from there.
Or if you get on with social media, you find places that you have followers that follow them, and you say, hey, well, we share a lot of followers, maybe we can expand some more by you showing, either having our post in there or maybe some kind of special mention. Like the comment I was thinking of earlier is Cyanide and Happiness. And a lot of times in there they'll disperse announcements about their book or something else, you could disperse in a post about, here's another comic we think you might be interested in because we like it. A lot of our followers like it, and they do the same thing.
But this definitely applies to any. I mean, not just comics. Like anyone out there on the web, especially the web is moving so much into microsites and microblogging with things like Groupon and stuff like that. And like starting small, like if you, with the local, you're doing nonprofits locally in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
So, but like, you know, even helping them reach out to each other and starting, you know, a ring amongst, you know, that works and that helps start the conversation. It's all about like getting the ball rolling more than anything.
Then too, tying into what we're saying here, this guy in addition has an e-newsletter that people can sign up on, and that's just that additional one more reminder. Oh yeah, there's a new comic posted this week. That depending on, some people are always going to just check their feed reader, so they won't sign up for the email. Other people are always going to check their email and never sign up for a feed. So giving yourself a couple different distribution mechanisms for getting your message out without doing, and it can be done now in such a way that it isn't turn into like 5 hours every day that you're working on marketing of your thing, because then you can't work on your thing. So, but I think you could have like an e-newsletter and or the feed. I think there's ways to capitalize on co-marketing, and that kind of stuff is really going to help you. Her session is probably going to be awesome. My session will have some similar topics too, and we'll take this idea a little bit further. And I'm 100% sure that if we just kind of stand around and chat, we'll come up with more ideas. And so, it is now, though, time to go to the next session, which won't have been canceled. Thank you all for joining in and making a session out of nothing. Very fun.